Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at Ask Adam Torres. And if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Leslie Ferry on the line, and she's a founder of Brize and host of the Bright and Wise podcast. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Leslie, I love having a pro on the line, love having other podcasters. We'll get into this Bright and Wise podcast. And of course, we'll talk about Brize. But just to get us started, I like to ask my Mission Matters question. So Leslie, we at Mission Matters amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Leslie, what mission matters to you?
Helping others evolve their self and others' awareness to self-empowerment in their careers to achieve their definition of career success.
Fantastic. Love bringing these missions to our audience. And speaking of mission, I mean, let's just start with your journey as an entrepreneur and into getting into business. I mean, like, how did you get on this path going into Brize?
So I'm going to take you way back. It started in conceptualized well before I even imagined what I wanted to do. As a child, we're often asked, how do you want to spend your career? What do you want to do? And I don't ever recall having this glamorous, aspirational answer to that. And I think it's because when I was in high school, I think the 11th grade, I took an accounting class. And it just made sense to me. I'm a very balanced person, and it was very logical to me. Our goal throughout the year was to manage the books of a t-shirt factory. And so that's when I decided I knew I had a career path. I was going to become an accountant. And that's what I did. I became a CPA. I started working in corporate America in a telecom company. I quickly was able to move to a Fortune 500 company, which is really telling to my story in that I had exposure to so much responsibility at a young age. But about 3 years into that job, I was recruited into marketing. And I was a pricing analyst at the time. So I was setting pricing for our consumer products. And the marketing person or product manager I was supporting tapped me and said, "Hey, I have this job open. I think you would be great for it." I said, "Okay, that's very flattering, but I've known I would be an accountant for years, right?" And I said, "By the way, I'm not your creative person," because back in that day, every time you said marketing, it was about network advertising, right? All the great creatives, which is not necessarily my forte. But she said, "No, it's very logical and strategic, and I think you would be good at it." So I decided to take the leap, and I've loved it ever since. So I've moved on I've been involved in every element of marketing that you could imagine, including some of those creative discussions. Yeah. But I've also had exposure to other operational, functional areas like sales and customer service. So I feel like I have a well-rounded, I've been blessed to have been exposed to many aspects of a business.
No, that's awesome. And I love that you kind of make that distinction, because typically, I mean, if we're thinking like from CPA to marketing, like most people would say, that's a different side of the brain or this or that. But like, I'm a big fan of what you said, because I mean, my background in finance, I feel like I was always kind of pigeonholed or told, I have to be this versus the other. And if I look back and I'm like what you said, like, you didn't have these very specific things. Well, I'll tell you what I didn't say when I was going to school. I didn't say I want to be a podcaster, because podcasters weren't even around, right? So
that's right.
Part of this whole thing is just that discovering that journey, right?
Yes. And I was open to the opportunity, right? I knew that I could always go back into finance. So why not take the challenge?
Oh my gosh, that's the whole reason we started Mission Matters. I was like, I know I can go back and be an advisor if I really want to, which I loved my clients. I loved the work that I did, by the way. But then I'm like, but you got to take this chance. I mean, I don't know if I'm always going to have this other chance. I love it. So you just took the words out of my mouth on that one. So now let's go further down the story. So now, you have a successful career in this area. And now, so like, what leads you to tell me more about like what that launch of Brize looks like, because your entrepreneurial story is a little bit different, right?
It is. It absolutely is. And it wasn't like in the moment, like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm going to go fix this. Mine was definitely an evolution. Mm-hmm. So I about 15 years into my career, I started to feel as though I wasn't being as effective as I had been. Mm-hmm. And I'd obviously moved on and had started to manage people as well. And I just felt like that I wasn't performing at my peak and not as well as I had in the past. And part of that was maybe I'm not communicating effectively. So I decided to, and had the opportunity to have a career coach. And the enlightenment, I can't even express how enlightening that whole process was. And that experience was really beneficial to me as I moved through my career. And I could point to a lot of different examples, but one thing that I learned to probably help solidify or help others visualize this benefit. And I'm going to make some generalizations here. And I don't mean to stereotype anyone. That's not what I'm doing. But if you were to step back and look at everyone in the workforce, we all fall into one of four quadrants generally, from a work approach standpoint and style, like how we prefer to communicate, our opinion of conflict, or even what motivates us. Yeah. And about 25% of the entire workforce falls into one of those categories. Mm-hmm. And you're naturally drawn to people with like work styles. And so you work very efficiently with that group. Well, hindsight's always 2020. What I came to realize is that in my prior work experiences, I was working with a lot of like-minded people or just approaches. And by the way, there's no right or wrong work style. They're all good, and and they all have some cons of some sort. But I needed to learn and realize that people have different motivations. They have different approaches to work. I'm very goal oriented. And so that makes me drive really hard to problem solve and figure out how to get something done. But I also needed to learn that could be interpreted as I only care about my career. You could be interpreted as being so uncaring of others. And so I learned these other work styles, and that helped me understand how people need to process information and what information you need to share with them, when to give more, when to pull back. And then I returned to, if you will, to that higher performing opportunity. So that, then I went on for about another 10 years in the workforce. And I had gone back into telecom by this point. I was with a company back in the telecommunications space. And when I looked at my industry experience, I was at 15, almost 16 years in telecom, which is a great industry, but I wanted a broader reach. I wanted to get back out into some other industries and find other opportunities. And so I took time off to try to decide what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I was actively looking for a job. I knew that I wanted to find an opportunity where I had a more direct impact on individuals and a positive impact. And how could I help them? And I knew it would be in technology because I love it. I love learning emerging technologies. And I'm not, I like to say, and I'm probably giving myself way too much credit, but I know more about technology than any non-computer scientist might. But I love it. Like, I enjoy trying to understand and learn that. I can't code, but I can talk the language. And so I was having lunch one day with a friend, a former colleague and friend, and we were talking about this disengagement situation in the workforce and how it's really not changed in hundreds of years. About 50% of people are really just disengaged at work. And we're like, how could we solve that problem? Because we spend so much time at work. And what could we do that would help improve engagement? And so now I'll speed the story a bit, but it came down to, I reflected back on my career coaching experience. And I thought, if we could get this benefit in the hands of people sooner in their careers, then it's a win-win for everyone, right? We have happy employers, we have more engaged and more excited employees. And so that's how Brize came about. I did a lot of research on, is there a way that we can take this very expensive, because career coaches are, they cost about $100 to $200 per hour. So it's very limited. There's a limited number of people that can take advantage of that. And then it's a one-to-one relationship, which is not scalable. So how do we go from the top and get down to more people? And it happens to be an opportunity to help the generation that I like to call technology savants. So they want a digital experience. And so that's how Brize came about. We are a mobile app that is designed to help individuals grow their interpersonal skills in the workforce to be successful.
So let's start with the term engagement, because I don't want to assume here. So what is, and I know this will be different for different organizations, different people, different size, everybody has different ways of expressing, but what does like engagement versus non-engagement look like in the workplace? So that core problem that you're solving, like what are the differences? Because I feel like many people don't necessarily always know.
And I think maybe engagement that's the term that we use in the industry, but maybe it's just about commitment and enjoyment. I think it's a combination of those, that you can give individuals a task to do and they will get it done, but it's not giving them purpose or meaning in some way. And I think there's a whole factor of reasons that impact that engagement, if you will, or that excitement about going to work. And it really comes down to your interaction skills and how you communicate and interact with your coworkers or teammates, if you will, and how can you motivate everyone around a cause or purpose. And that gets back again to those four quadrants of different work styles. And you need everyone motivated, these different motivations. And if you can tap into those motivations and demonstrate how they're contributing to a greater cause, then you drive engagement up. Because if you remember, I said we help people achieve their definition of career success. And that's how they feel like they're contributing or not.
What type of companies or individuals have you found that are typically a good fit to work with Brize and the app overall?
So the individuals that we're most beneficial helping are those that are in what we call the knowledge economy, and it's everything is evolving, right? Another reason that I'm excited about this opportunity is because the future of work is human. So ultimately, any industry, any individual will ultimately, and quite honestly, anyone could benefit from greater self-awareness in any job that we have today. But anything that's a repetitive task or something that can be automated is in the process of being automated, whether that's through robotics or AI. So when I say knowledge economy, all jobs will eventually be about creativity and innovation and solving problems. And it's going to be more cognitive skills than physical labor. So we're already moved, the Industrial Revolution has already moved on. We're just going to continue to move further into the experience economy. And so if we can help people continue to evolve and fine tune the way they think, understand how others think to communicate effectively, then we're going to drive a lot of innovation across a variety of industries.
So let's go further down that path. So natural intelligence versus like technical skills. I mean, that's a debate in itself. So I mean, give us a little bit more on like what's the importance.
So this is it's been a fairly well-known fact, but not often talked about, is that into emotional intelligence. And I'll define what we believe that to be at Brize in a minute. But intellectual, if you had a pie chart and you said, what contributes most to career fulfillment or success? The larger piece of that pie is actually emotional intelligence. It's somewhere between, depending on the research, 60 to 65% of career satisfaction and success is emotional intelligence. The balance is a combination of natural intelligence and the technical skills that we've all developed in the area of field of study that we've invested time in. And then at Brize, when I first started to think about this, I was like, well, of course, emotions have a big play at work because we're passionate people. We've worked hard to become subject matter experts. We're going to have strong opinions. And so, of course, those emotions play into it, but it's something much broader than that. And because if you just said you need to build your emotional intelligence, wouldn't know exactly how to go do that. And so we wanted to help people. We wanted to take that work out of the process for individuals as well. So we really focused on emotional intelligence in two ways. One about self-awareness, as I've talked about, and then others awareness. So knowing how I think and process information and how my colleagues or teammates do. And then we have about 16 skills that we've placed into three categories of think, act, and mindsets. And they really grow if there's a foundational skill that everyone should have in life, and that's active listening. And that's actually a thinking skill that if you can master that, then you're ready to move on to critical thinking or problem solving, and then how empathy and humility and all of these other mindsets play into being strongly self-aware and others aware.
Let's go further along this idea of the skill side of things and where we're going next. So I believe you said you called it the savant generation that's born with this technology. And I go through this. I mean, I just upgraded my iPhone. I go through these things all the time, and a new laptop, and I'm trying to do oh my gosh, it's a lot. So I want to go through the user's experience of what Brize looks like for not just the technical savants out there, but let's just say for the people like me that maybe I'm supposed to be better with technology that I actually am, or I get credit for, let's just say. How's the user experience? Walk us through what that looks like.
So when someone decides to engage with our mobile app, each skill, we have, again, 16 skills, and the construct of each are the same. One is you can assess your current ability in that, because we're really everyone is self-aware, but we're having to evolve self-awareness and grow. Like when we learned how to read, we learned we learned our ABCs and our sounds, and then we were able to put words together. So now we're just helping people along that same evolution path from an emotional intelligence and self-awareness standpoint. So we start with assess your current capabilities. You may be a great active listener. I have a friend she is off the charts from an active listening standpoint, and I admire that. She's able to focus and listen and make sure she really understands. But not all of us are tuned that way, especially given all the distractions that we have in our life right now. So you can assess your current abilities. If you think you should strengthen it, then engage with our educational content. And then we also have development exercises, and we've included anywhere from 5 to 8 different exercises per skill so that individuals can choose those that help them learn best. And once they've had an opportunity to practice these development exercises, then they can assess their ability again and move on if they like. So it's really about assessing development and strengthening, and continuing to build up to, we have this, I keep pointing to a triangle. We have these building blocks to get to success. And so ultimately getting to their definition of career success.
What kind of feedback have you received so far on this? Like from either the users or in beta testing or otherwise? Like, tell me about some of the feedback, or from the employers.
Yeah, so it's been one area that's interesting as a founder, and you read all the stories about it when you start a business, and everyone tells you that's a crazy idea, that will never work, and this makes me a little nervous, to be perfectly candid. I've not heard that yet. I've not heard that that's just a crazy idea, like Airbnb. No one will ever rent out their rooms in their houses, you know. Mm-hmm. So everyone said, "Oh, I understand the need." I'm not sure everyone understood how we were working to digitize this opportunity to make a scalable opportunity, but they understood the need and what we're working to help improve and develop. I think the greatest compliment I've had was with some of our beta users when we first got started. And there were some people that had worked for me in the past, and another group of people that had worked with our coaches, our career coaches and psychologists who helped develop the content. And after a series of going through the content, she looked at me and said, I wish I had known this earlier in my career. I'm like, okay, we're on to something. So now if we can just get that flywheel, so I know we've landed on good information, a good process. And now if we can get it in more people's hands, then that would be phenomenal from achieving our mission standpoint.
That's amazing. I love it. And when you said that, I'm like that. I wish I knew this before. I mean, how many of us aren't plagued with that in some facet or another? So to know that you're solving a problem like this, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Another funny story on that too. If it was interesting. Of course, when you develop something like this, you give it to all of your friends and family.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit older, and so my friends are, of my generation, and I didn't really think that would be terribly interesting to them, but everyone was very kind. And then my husband sent it out to a lot of his friends as well. And they are actively engaging with the app. So it's not in there, and some of it was out of kindness and just seeing what is Leslie up to, which is awesome. And I hope then they're giving me good feedback. But even one of them said, I think this might be able to help even an old guy like me. So I think he was joking, but he's been engaging with the app. So it's the goal is to help individuals be happier and have less stress and anxiety at work, right? So whoever that helps is fantastic.
Man, that's a big deal. I want to get into your podcast. So Bright and Wise podcast. We're going to circle back to Brize, of course, because I want to know what's next and what you have planned. But I do want to talk about this podcast too, because I'm a podcaster. I love supporting podcasters and the podcasting community. I told you this earlier when we were doing the warm-up. I'm like, I still have yet to meet a podcaster I don't like. I just feel like the podcasting community is so cool. Everybody's so warm and wants to help. And like, it's just been a great community for me. So I'm excited to help talk about your podcast and the content you're putting out. And I definitely want my viewers and listeners to definitely go check that out. So again, Bright and Wise podcast. So why'd you start it? I guess let's start there. Like, what was the inspiration for the podcast?
So and let me just add that of all the many things that I've enjoyed doing with Brize, with the creation of Brize, the Bright and Wise podcast and talking to individuals has been very rewarding and not only rewarding, but heartwarming and just inspiring. And that's the whole purpose. So, again, it came back to, I'm like, this emotional intelligence thing, what does it mean? And how do we really how can it really help? Can it really help me at work? I guess is what I was struggling with. And I'm like, well, yes, because I keep talking to individuals who say, yes, I became more self-aware. Once I became more self-aware, work became more enjoyable and somewhat easier. I mean, work is work, and we're challenged to get to solve problems and come up with solutions. But they were more enlightened. And I'm like, well, that's really what the purpose of Bright and Wise is. It's to share stories from individuals who have overcome adversity or removed barriers to getting to what they need to achieve, and sharing those stories with others so that they can see themselves in it and understand how they can benefit from self-awareness development and others' awareness development. So I've talked to everyone from someone who is now an Episcopal priest, and she was a finance major and had to really decide how she wanted to combine her passion with her vocation, and how her awareness came together through a series of different career opportunities. To my most recent guest was another CMO and she had a great saying that I think gets to the heart of what we're hoping to accomplish with Bright and Wise, and that getting what you want is easier. Knowing what you want is hard. And so we're trying to help individuals understand what they want and how they can get to what they want. So I love every time I hear the final edited version of a podcast. I have this warmth come over me, because first, it's out of gratitude for people taking time to share their stories and being, like you said, they're just so generous and so helpful and sharing all these amazing stories. So that is part of the warmth. But the other part is that I can feel and hope that the stories will have an impact on a listener somehow.
Mm. So next question is an unfair question. I ask all my podcasters this question. It's like asking people to choose between their kids. So this isn't going to be an easy one, but one of the favorite moments on the podcast. Like, what's one of your favorite stories from the podcast? And again, like I said, choosing between all your episodes, it's so hard. But what's one of your favorite moments?
So it is a very unfair question. So thank you for
I know it is. That's why this one's my show. It's the worst question to ask a host.
I'm going to maybe dodge the question a little bit because I think there's something unique in every story, right? I'll share the one that I had, and I've had fun recording all of them. So this is but the one that I had the most fun recording was it was one of my first episodes with a very dear friend. And we really needed to edit it down a lot because we started cackling and just going off in all kinds of directions, which was tremendously fun. But we ultimately got back to a good story too. So I think that was probably from just a personal, this is my friend, really close friend, telling all these great stories. That was really fun. To, people that I've learned, like, again, my most recent episode, the CMO I mentioned, she was dyslexic or is dyslexic. And they didn't know that as a child. She came when she was growing up, that wasn't easily diagnosed. And so she just, it gave her confidence at a young age to overcome adversity. And I think it gave her a little bit of grit, which is awesome. So I think there's something unique in every story.
Wonderful. Thank you for tackling that question. I know it's unfair, but I love to ask it because it's so mean.
It's great.
So let's circle back to Brize. So what's next? Like, what's on the horizon? What's the plans for the app? What's the plans for the company going forward?
So we have a lot of ideas. Obviously, when you're in technology, and I am one of those people that I can think of all these crazy ideas, and everything's possible, right, with time. So we have a lot of fun features coming out that will help further. I don't want to say educate, but help people become even more self-aware. It's going to become more enlightening. The more that we can add features that are more thoughtful and kind of putting the light bulb off. It's like, oh, that is me. And that is how I approach work. I think we can speed the development of their self-awareness. So I think it's safe to say that we'll continue to drive customer experience. I really want it to be both from a content standpoint and the topics that we're tackling to the engagement and how we can ease the user experience and make it delightful, if you will, for the users.
Wonderful. Well, Leslie, I have to tell you, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today. If somebody's watching this right now and they're inspired and they want to learn more about Brize, they want more of that development. I mean, I want to check it out. I mean, I think emotional intelligence is huge. And to, like you said, we spend so much time at work to be more fulfilled, to be happier while we're doing what we do. Because as you said, also, work is work. But if we can do it in a more fulfilling way, I mean, why not? All the better. So if somebody is watching this and they want to learn more about Brize, or if they want to also listen to your podcast, so Bright and Wise podcast, I mean, what's the best way for them to do those things?
Sure. So our Bright and Wise podcast is also, it's on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify, but we also include it on our website, which is brize.co. So brize.co. And you can learn more about Brize, access some of our other resources, as well as know where to download the app from both app stores. We're also on LinkedIn. We have a company page. It's just Brize, Brize. And then Instagram, our handle is Brize, Bright and Wise. So you can search for that.
Fantastic. Well, Leslie, again, thank you for coming on the show today and sharing more about your mission. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We want you to be a return viewer or listener, depending on where you're at. And we got many, many more mission-based entrepreneurs and business leaders coming up for you next. And Leslie, it really has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time. This was fun.